So now we are starting with mycology, and in the mycology today I will be showing a lot of pictures in between, so mostly we'll be taking up it in this format. Okay, so first of all you need to remember that the fungi, what they are eukaryotic protist. Okay, they belong to this particular one, eukaryotic protista, and the cell wall of them, it is having what? Chitin, menin and polysaccharides. Okay, the cell walls of them, they have what? Chitin, menin and polysaccharides, and the cytoplasmic membrane of them is made up of what? Sterol. Okay, can you tell me which particular bacteria is having the cytoplasmic membrane made up of sterol? The answer is mycoplasma. Okay, so, but they have that. These fungus, they have this property to have the cytoplasmic membrane as sterol. Okay, they possess true nuclei, they have a nuclear membrane, and they having a paired chromosome. Okay, so remember guys, the important thing to remember here is cytoplasmic membrane is made up of sterol, this particular point. Another one is the cell wall is having this particular thing, that is chitin, which is characteristic of fungus. Now the simplest type of fungus is a unicellular budding yeast, and this is the way how does the budding happens. This is new one, then this is the budding, and septum formation happens, and then it divides into two, mother cells and daughter cells. So this is what is termed as budding. Hyphae or hypha, elongated tubular structure, that is termed as hyphae. Mycelium is a tangled mass of hyphae, that is termed as, there's actually E here. So hyphae is the elongated tubular structure, mycelium is tangled mass of hyphae. And as such, you need to remember the hyphae, they can be septate, septations might be there, or aseptate without any septa and all. Okay, now in the mycelium also, some are vegetative and some are aerial, and as you can see in this picture, the vegetative ones are which one? Which are down, and the aerial ones are which project from the surface. So these are the vegetative mycelium, and this is what is the aerial mycelium. Fine. So vegetative one is what? Which grows into the media, and aerial one is what? Which projects from the surface. The classification. This is morphological classification, and in the morphological classification I used to tell like this, that they are yeast-like, okay, molds and dimorphic. Okay, so one is yeast-like, one is molds, and one is dimorphic. So this was one of the all India questions, that which is an example of true yeast. So remember, the typical example of true yeast is Cryptococcus neoformans. Okay, it's an example of true yeast, and it is obviously spherical or ellipsoidal cells and reproduced by budding, which we just discussed. Fine. So this is a true yeast. Regarding the yeast-like, partly it is as a yeast and partly as an elongated cell, and that elongated cell is termed about pseudohyphae. Remember guys one thing, that the Candida albicans is one such fungus which can show any form of fungus, means it can show true hyphae, okay, it can show pseudo hyphae, okay, it can show the structures which are termed as yeast or yeast-like, means all the forms can be shown by this, but mainly what it is, mainly it is a yeast-like one. Okay, and you can see up, these are budding ones which are coming out of these yeast cells. Molds you can say by this spelling also, and this spelling also is fine for molds, and they are the true mycelia, and they reproduce by what? Spores and all. Okay, so this, what comes in molds? Remember, what comes in molds is rhizopus is a mold, aspergillus, that is a mold, rhizopus and aspergillus, these are the molds. Fine. So one is rhizopus and one is aspergillus. Then the fourth one on the basis of morphological classification is dimorphic fungus, and in the dimorphic fungus you need to remember that in the host tissues or cultures at 37 they exist as yeast, and in the soil and in the cultures at 22 they act as a malts. Okay, so remember, some books they say 22 and some books they say at 25 what they are malts. And you remember like this, 22 or 25 karat gold is mold. Okay, so 25 is malts and at 37 they are yeast. Fine. And in this what you need to remember is that what are the various dimorphic fungus. So remember them by a mnemonic HSBC. Okay, this particular mnemonic is there, that is termed as HSBC P square. Okay, HSBC P square. So remember, what is this H? HSBC, you know, na? That is a bank. HSBC P square. So H is what? H is histo. That is histoplasmosis. Fine. I'm telling about the dimorphic fungal disease. So H is histoplasmosis. S is sporotrichosis. S is sporotrichosis. B is blastomycosis. C is coccidioidomycosis. Okay, C is coccidioidomycosis. P square is having one of the P's as what? Paracoccidioidomycosis. And another P is what? Another P is penicilliosis. Okay, another P is what? That is penicilliosis. So remember guys, these are the various dimorphic fungal diseases. These 6 you need to remember, and they can definitely come in the exam. That what are the various dimorphic fungus? The one is fungal diseases: histoplasmosis, sporotrichosis, blastomycosis, coccidioidomycosis, paracoccidioidomycosis, and penicilliosis. Remember, Candida is not a dimorphic fungus because dimorphism is dependent on the temperature. At 37 they are yeast, and at 22 to 25 they are malts. Okay, and malt is gold. You just remember up 25 or 22 karat gold means at a lower temperature they are malts, and at a higher one they are yeast. Okay, and what is this mnemonic? This mnemonic is for this: HSBC P square: histoplasmosis, sporotrichosis, blastomycosis, coccidioidomycosis, paracoccidioidomycosis, and penicilliosis. Fine. Now, the other classification is based upon the sexual spore formation. Okay, and in the sexual spore formation, you need to remember first of all the phycomycetes. Phycomycetes are also termed as what? Zygomycetes. The other name of them is zygomycetes or phycomycetes. And the most important thing is they are non-septate. Okay, they are non-septate hyphae they have, and the other thing is that they are arranged obtuse angled mostly. Okay, they are arranged what? They are arranged obtuse angled. So one thing, the phycomycetes, they are non-septate hyphae, they are obtuse angled, and they form asexual spores, and they are termed as sporangia. Okay, they have some asexual spores also, and that is present in them, and that they are formed up a sporangia. Within that they are there. Okay, so remember, by the name of that particular family only the sexual spore name is there, that is zygospore is there in this. Okay, the zygospore is there in that phycomycetes, and they have asexual spores also which are present inside the sporangia. Okay, this is the way how does the zygospores undergo reproduction. Okay, so this is what is the thing you are seeing: a fusion of hyphae is happening, a fusion of nuclei, and there is zygospore formation. Okay, the another one is ascomycetes, and they have which sexual spore? They have ascospores in an ascus. Okay, so this is particular one is termed as ascus, which you are seeing up. Okay, and this particular one format is termed as ascus, and inside that there is a ascospore, and this particular one is termed as Clistothecium. Don't go into all this. You just remember up that ascospores name have come from what? From this structure which is termed as ascus. Okay, and inside that, what is there? Ascospores. Fine. Then basidiomycetes, these are there, and the sexual spores on a basidium are there, and that is present in whom? That is present in Cryptococcus neoformans. That is present in what? It is present in Cryptococcus neoformans. And one family is there which is termed as fungi imperfecti, that is Deuteromycetes, and this is an all India question. There is no sexual phase in that. Okay, there is no sexual phase in the Deuteromycetes. That's why they are also termed as what? Fungi imperfecti. Okay, so that's why they are also termed as what? Fungi imperfecti. Okay, so if you want to remember up the sexual spore as such, you just remember up a mnemonic, that is JUB. Okay, so sexual spores, Z is zygospore, A is ascospore, and B is basidiospore. Okay, so one is zygospore, one is ascospores, and one is basidiospores, which you need to remember. Okay, so these are the sexual spores which you need to remember. And here only, if you want to remember up, you can remember the asexual spores also. The various medically important asexual spores in the fungus, you can remember them by a mnemonic A, B, and C. What is A? A is arthrospore. A is what? A is arthrospore. B is blastospore. Okay, B is blastospore, and C is chlamydospore. Okay, so if somebody asks you that what are the various asexual spores, so these are the various asexual spores. The first one is arthrospore, second one is blastospore, and the third one is chlamydospore. Okay, third one is chlamydospore. Now, in general, in the lab diagnosis, we mostly use for the fungus what? 10% coverage. So that what we can see in this, we can see the fungal elements. And what is the meaning of fungal elements? Basically the hyphal structure and all. Okay. You can use another particular stain which is termed as LPCB, lactophenol cotton blue, to stain up the tease mounts. Tease means when you have teased up with the help of needles are there, and you try to tease up those particular like rhizopus colonies and all that. So you tease up them, you make a tease mount of them, and you stain up with lactophenol cotton blue. This is the fluorescent staining that you know that we have this fluorescent staining here, and this fluorescent staining is termed as what? This fluorescent staining is termed as chalcofluor white. So remember, if somebody asks you which is a fungal fluorescent staining, the answer is chalcofluor white. And in total, what you need to remember, the various fluorescent stains. The one is aurum and rhodomin, one is chalcofluor white, and one is acridine orange. These three names you need to remember. Fungal is chalcofluor white. Now, this particular method is employed up in the lab diagnosis to find out the structures, basic structures of various molds and all. Okay, like in the Zygomycetes family, like in the Aspergillus and all, you go for this slide culture, and you do by these all procedures, that the slide culture. Okay. Now, the another stain which is being used is PAS, that is periodic acid skiff. So we are like going up regarding the various fungal stains. Gomori methamin silver, this particular stain is also being used, and especially the question of AIMS was, this stain is used for what? So remember, mainly it is used for pneumocystis carni, okay, or xerovasi. Pneumocystis carni or xerovasi. And remember one thing, guys, that this particular one stains which color? Gomori methamin silver stains which color? So G for G, remember up, it stains green. Okay, it stains green. But remember here, that the trophozoites of Pneumocystis carni, they are stained green. Okay, they are stained green, but the cyst is stained black. The cyst is stained black. And this might be a question why it is stained black, because it is having glycogen and all. That's why it stains black. So remember, this gomerimethylene silver is an important stain used for Pneumocystis carni, and you know what Pneumocystis carni does? Pneumocystis carni does Pneumocystis carni pneumonia. And in whom? In HIV positive fellows, when the CD4 count goes below how much? Below 200. Okay. And there was a question in AIMS that what is the drug of choice for this, and here only you remember that also, that is cotrimoxazole. Okay, so we'll discuss it later, but just for the information sake, I've told you that when the CD4 count in HIV positive fellow, in a HIV positive one, goes below 200, then this particular pneumonia happens, Pneumocystis carni pneumonia, and the drug of choice for that is cotrimoxazole. Okay. Now, mainly you know that what is the culture media used for the fungus? Mainly the culture media is Sebrod dextrosaga. That is the SDA. That is the main one which is being used, and it is having a pH of 5.6 round off. And this is the 5.6 round off, or it can vary between 5.4 to 5.6. Okay. So Sebrod dextrosaga is a universal fungal culture media. Everybody knows that. Zapekdox, this name you need to remember, cornmeal agar. And to all these medias, what you can add up as an antibiotic one, cyclohexamide, number of other antibiotics you can add up to make it selective for the fungus. Okay. Then the various incubation time and temperature. At room temperature you incubate for the moles and all, okay, for weeks together. At 37 for 4 days round, you for the yeast growth and all. So incubation time and temperature is this. Fine. How you identify the particular culture plate and all, it belongs to which particular fungus, which type of morphology is showing up. So remember, the fungus are being identified by the colony and the fungal morphology. First thing, by the growth of the fungus and the colony characteristics. How does they growth up? Rapidity of the growth, the color which they take. Okay, what is the morphology of the colony, which is also termed as obverse, and pigmentation of them, that is termed as reverse. So this is pigmentation and this is the morphology of the colony. So remember like this, that morphology is termed as obverse and pigmentation termed as reverse. They are the names given up to them. Okay, so don't go into that, just remember the morphology and pigmentation. You have to look out to identify the fungus. Okay, T's amount we have already talked of, slide culture we have already talked of. And remember this might come as a question, the special type of hyphae, that is spiral hyphae. Okay, like the helical coils, this is particular one which is termed as spiral hyphae. So these special types of hyphae are also seen up. Okay, this is termed as racket hyphae, resembling the tennis racket. Okay, these are the racket hyphae. This is a question, favic chandelier, the numerous short branches appearing at the ends of hyphae, looks like deer one, na? That particular horns of deer. So this particular one is favic chandelier. So remember, one is favic chandelier, one is racket hyphae, and one is spiral, and these types of helical hyphae. Okay, then this terminology, that what is conidia, microconidia, macroconidia. What is micro? Micro is small and single celled. Macro is large, single or multi-celled. Okay, micro is small or single celled. Macro is large, single or multi-celled. That is what is termed as. And what is in the layman language you can call the conidia and all? Spores. So small spore and a large spore. Small spore is small and single celled. Microconidia, that is large, single or multi-celled. Okay, this I've already talked to you. The blastospores, if you remember that mnemonic A, B and C, it was there in the B, so that is a asexual spore. This is chlamydospores, we have talked about ABC. So C is chlamydospores, that is a thick walled resting spores formed by rounding up and the thickening of hyphae. Okay, so these are the spores, thick walled resting spores formed by rounding up and thickening of hyphae, and they are characteristically seen in whom? They are characteristically seen in Candida. And in fact, in the Candida albicans, on corn, meal, agar. On corn, meal, agar. This particular chlamydospores they are formed up. Okay. Arthrospores along the hyphae by segmentations and condensation, they look like a rectangular one. Okay, they look like rectangular. So that is what is termed as arthrospores. So arthrospores, by the example, if you want to remember, they are present in coccidioidomycosis. Okay, they are observed in this particular fungus that is termed as coccidioidomycosis. They are having the arthrospores. Okay. Now the other classification based on the location, one is superficial mycosis, one is deep mycosis, and one is opportunistic mycosis. Okay, and in that one we missed out, that is the subcutaneous mycosis. One is subcutaneous mycosis. Okay, so one is superficial mycosis, one is deep mycosis, one is opportunistic mycosis. In fact, they are more or less same. Okay, so superficial mycosis, subcutaneous mycosis, deep mycosis, or you can say opportunistic mycosis. Now in the superficial one, as the name suggests, what will be involved up in the superficial mycosis? The superficial area of the skin. Okay, what will be involved up? The superficial layer of the skin, that is involved up in the superficial mycosis. Whereas in the subcutaneous one, it is the skin and the subcutaneous tissue. That particular one is you involved up in subcutaneous mycosis. Whereas deep or systemic mycosis or opportunistic mycosis, that is termed as, another name for this is systemic mycosis. The another name for this is systemic mycosis. Okay, so now we'll take the examples of them. The first of all, we'll talk about the superficial one. So these are the Pityriasis versicolor, Tinea nigra, white pidra, black pidra. Okay, Pityriasis versicolor, the etiology is what? Malassezia furfur, and in the skin they say Malassezia globosa. Okay, Malassezia globosa, but the question mainly have come regarding the furfur. So Pityriasis versicolor, which is a superficial mycosis, that is being caused by Malassezia furfur. Tinea nigra, that is Phaeoanellomyces wernicke, which is also termed as what? Exophylla wernicke, which is also termed as what? Exophylla wernicke. White pidra. White pidra is caused by Trichosporon bijli. Okay, and remember how you remember the bijli is which one? This bijli is that which is there in the monsoon. Okay, the lightning of that. So that is white in color. So you can remember like this, that white pidra is Trichosporon bijli. Black pidra, that is Pidre horte. Okay, what is hot? Hot is black. So remember like this, black pidra, that is Pidre horte. So pidra is an infection of the hairs and all. Okay, that is the nodules they formed up. So this is an infection of the hair nodules. Tinea nigra, there is over the palms and soles it happens. And Pityriasis versicolor, you know that it is forming up macules or hyperpigmented scaling, or hypopigmented scaling happens up over the trunk. Okay, so in the superficial one you have dermatophytosis also, that is of three types: microsporium, trichophyton, and epidermophyton. Floccosamous species you can write up. Okay, in the subcutaneous one, you remember them by a mnemonic, that is MRCS. Okay, remember them by a mnemonic MRCS. M is having what? M is having mycetoma. Okay, R is having rhinosporidiosis. Okay, C is having chromoblasto or chromomycosis. And S is sporotrichosis. Okay, sporotrichosis. So remember the subcutaneous ones you can remember by a mnemonic, that is MRCS. And what is there in the MRCS? In the MRCS you have mycetoma, rhinosporidiosis, chromomycosis and sporotrichosis. Okay, these are the examples of them they are given up. Later on we also do that. So just remember of the subcutaneous skin and subcutaneous tissues involved up, and these are the various subcutaneous mycosis. Okay, then systemic one, the primary mycosis. Remember the name which I have told you in this mnemonic, HSBC P square, and you know that they all are what? Dimorphic ones. They all are there in the systemic or primary mycosis. Okay, so then histo, remember one particular disease goes an exception, and what is that exception? The exception is sporo. And if you remember up just now we have done, that is sporotrichosis is mainly what? A subcutaneous one. Otherwise all the dimorphic ones, they are there in the systemic one. Okay, so as you can see up, coccidiioido is there, histo is there, blasto is there, paracoccidiioido is there. All of them they are there, but one fellow is missing from this list, that is the sporotrichosis, which is mainly what? Which is mainly a subcutaneous mycosis. Okay, and along with them you can remember up, that is the candida, that is candidiidomycosis also some says, but that is not the correct word to say. So just remember up candida, candidiasis, cryptococcosis, aspergillosis, and even these mucormycosis of Rhizopus, Absidian mucor, they are termed as systemic infections. Okay, now we are starting with firstly the superficial one, and obviously they are termed as what? Surface or cutaneous infections. Okay, surface or cutaneous infections. So what we have learned up, that in the superficial mycosis, the superficial layer of the skin is involved up, and what mainly comes in that? In that comes the dermatophytes. Okay, in that comes the tinea versicolor, tinea nigra and the pidra. Fine. Then the subcutaneous one, what you have? That you have MRCS. M is mycetoma. Okay, R is rhinosporidiosis, C is chromomycosis, and S is sporotrichosis. Fine. But in the systemic one, deep mycosis, what you have? You have all the dimorphic fungus except which one? Sporo. Okay, along with that you can have the candida, you can have the cryptococcus, along with that you can have those fellows also which are there in the zygomycetes family, like Rhizopus, mucor and Absidian. Okay, now we are taking up the superficial mycosis. In the superficial mycosis we have surface infections, cutaneous infections. The surface infections first of all. Now we are just now tinea versicolor, tinea nigra. I have told you tinea versicolor is being caused by what? Malassezia furfur or globosa, and tinea nigra is also being done by this particular one, Exophylla wernicke. Okay, Exophylla wernicke. So tinea versicolor, tinea nigra, then you have white pidra. I have told you that these both things, white and black pidra, what are they? They are hair nodules. What are they? They are hair nodules, white pidra and black pidra. The white pidra is caused by trichosporon or microsporum also, some they say, but the real one is trichosporon bijli. You remember by this because it have come in the exam by this, but this is also correct, microsporum bijli. Black pidra, that black is hot, so pidre horte. So you must have seen some saints and all which have nodules in their hairs. So actually that is a fungal infection which they have. White nodules, white pidra, black nodules, black pidra. I will show the pictures later. So first of all we are talking about the tinea versicolor, caused by what? Malassezia furfur. Okay, discrete hyperpigmented or hypopigmented. Remember, hyperpigmented everybody knows, but hypopigmented and hyperpigmented, both types of macules or scales, they are observed up in this particular tinea versicolor. Okay, and mostly the fellows like in the common one, they confuse it with leprosy. Okay, so that comes in the DD. So on the chest and on the upper back, you can see up upper back and the chest, these types of lesions, they are formed by this particular fungus. Okay. Now, the colony looks like yeast-like consistency is there. At the microscope, you have spherical, oval or cylindrical cells. So they are observed. Any yeast will exist in these forms, only spherical, oval or cylindrical one. So they look like this. Okay. First of all, remember this. What are the clinical features? Why it happens? Tinea versicolor, why does it happens and where it happens? So the incidence is there in the tropics more. Okay. And what are the various predisposing factors? The first one is perspiration. Okay. Then the steroids, corticosteroids, on a prolonged corticosteroids, malnutrition, hereditary or immunosuppression. These are the various factors which predispose to the tinea versicolor. Okay. Now, in the diagnosis and all, you remember like this, you take the scrapings from the skin, okay, those scales you take up by the scrapings, and what you do after these scrapings you put these scales into 10% KOH, okay. When you put these scales into 10% KOH, you get a unique type of appearance that is termed as spaghetti and meatball appearance. Okay, spaghetti or meatball appearance, which looks like this, like noodles, and within them there is meatballs. So that particular typical is termed as seen on when the scales, these scrapings, which are in the form of mostly the scales, you take with the help of scalpel those scrapings and you put in 10% KOH and you have this spaghetti and meatball appearance. Okay, so one thing is this. Other than that, you remember that when these scales, they are being put into SDA, okay, and what is SDA? Sebrodextrose agar, and over that what you put olive oil. Over that what you put? Olive oil. Why you putting olive oil? Because this is a lipophilic fungus. Okay, this particular one is a lipophilic fungus. It loves to grow in the presence of oil. So olive oil you put over this. You first of all put the scales on the SDA and then you put the olive oil overlay. And what you able to get in this? Able to get up fried egg colonies. What are you able to get up in these fungal colonies? They look like a fried egg colonies. So remember this thing also. The scales when put in SDA and over that you put olive oil overlay, then it have the fried egg colonies. Fine. Then these particular scales you can put up in wood lamp examination also. You can put up in wood lamp examination also. And in the wood lamp examination, when you put these scales, what you observe a yellow fluorescence. Okay, you observe a yellow fluorescence, and this also you need to remember that in the wood lamp examination it shows what? It shows yellow fluorescence, and the scales when put in SDA, it have a which type of colony growth? Fried egg colonies, which are also what? Mycoplasma. Okay, so remember all these points regarding tinea versicolor, important ones. Okay, caused by what? Malassezia furfur or Malassezia globosa. Okay, treatment and all that will be better deal up by the dermat fellows. Okay, but as such you use selenium sulfide, which is being asked once, that selenium sulfide is used for. Mecanazole, ketoconazole, and number of others that will be covered by the dermatology faculty. Okay, then tinea nigra. Tinea nigra, that is the second superficial infection we talked about. It is superficial, it is chronic, and mostly remains asymptomatic. Okay, this is superficial, this is chronic, and mostly remains what? Asymptomatic, and obviously it is this infection of what? Stratum corneum, superficial layer of the skin, caused by Cladosporium wernicki, or which is also termed as by various other names like Ixophylla wernicki. Okay, Ixophylla wernicki, and number of others. Okay, so this particular one, you remember one thing, it's a saprophyte. Okay, dimorphic fungus, I should not say that, because it is not a dimorphism. Dimorphism, you just remember that is being defined for. So this is a wrong statement as such that this is a dimorphic fungus. No, it's not. Okay, HSBC P square. That is what is the dimorphic ones. So saprophyte it is. Diatomaceous fungus. That is a correct statement. Diatomaceous it is, and it is having a pigmented hyphae. Okay, it is having a pigmented hyphae. So remember the diatomaceous ones. It comes in that diatomaceous fungus list. This particular one. Okay, pigmented hyphae it have. So that I've already told you. In the microscopy, the budding yeast or chains of yeast cells are observed up, and the main feature is it is having a pigmented hyphae. Okay, it is having pigmented hyphae, budding yeast and chain of yeast cells that is observed in this. Okay. Lesions. How does the lesions of Tinea nigra looks like? They are solitary. They are innocuous macule with brownish color at the advancing periphery. Okay, so these are mostly like this. They are looking like on the palms, and these are those budding yeast cells which I have just observed. So they are solitary, single, innocuous maculae like, okay, and with brownish color at the advancing periphery. They turn out to be brown in color, and mostly they are found in the palms, face, and the fingers, and even in the soles. Okay, that particular Tinea nigra is there. So this is there, that particular one that is seen in this Tinea nigra. Okay, so that you already know that KVH mount you will do, culture of skin scrapings you do from the periphery of the lesion. So that is common to all the fungus as such. The 10% KVH you use, and you will culture the skin scrapings from on the SD and all. So that is moreover for all. Treatment is you can use keratolytic solutions, salicylic acid or tincture of iodine for this particular one, and along with fungal obviously. Pidra. Okay, so Pidra infection, we talked about hair nodules and all. So fungus infection of hairs by appearance of firm irregular nodules along the hair shaft. Okay, so they are irregular nodules but they are firm, and there is a black Pidra and there is a white Pidra. The black Pidra is Pidre horte, white Pidra is Trichosporon bijli, or you can say Microsporum bijli. Okay, so that you already know, and it was asked in All India exam twice, so you need to remember both these names, and I can give you a hint for remembering this. Black Pidra, Pidre horte. Okay, how you remember? The black is hot. Remember like this. White Pidra, white is which? That lightning, and white is lightning, so bijli. In the north side, you call that light as what? Bijli. So Trichosporon bijli, white Pidra, and black Pidra is Pidre horte. Okay. So you remove the hairs. For the treatment, application of topical antifungal agents is recommended for the Pidra. This is white Pidra and this is black Pidra. So remember guys, why I'm showing up in this fashion, because I want to show you the pictures today. Okay. So that is there. That is the white Pidra and the black Pidra. Now, something about the dermatophytes. Okay, important question of second year also, the dermatophytes, and in the exam also, number of questions they come regarding it. The group of filamentous fungus that infects only superficial keratinized tissues like skin, hair, and nails. Okay, the clinical condition is termed as tinea or the ringworm also. Tinea or the ringworm also. Why it affects them only? Because it has certain enzymes with it which is having affinity towards it. Keratinases, it produces a proteolytic enzymes that digest the keratin of the hair, nail and epidermis. Okay, and attack rate is higher in the institutions and the overcrowded population of them. Okay, you already know that three are there: trichophyton, microsporum, epidermophyton, and the morphology is identified by what? Colonial appearance and microscopy. Okay, so remember the trichophyton involves what? This is a question. So remember it involves what? It involves skin, hair and nails. Skin, hair and nails. Microsporum involves what? Skin and hair. Okay, and epidermophyton involves what? Skin and nails. Skin and nails. So this always remain a confusion that which involves hair, which involves nails. For that confusion, you just remember up a mnemonic that will help you. And what is that mnemonic? Tri means all the three: skin, hair, and nails. Microsporum M do not involve N. Skin is common to all, skin will be there, but M do not involve N means hair will be involved. Okay, so that is there. Epidermophyton, skin is there, but the remaining one is there, that are now nails. So remember, like this you can remember up that which particular dermatophyte involves which particular sites. Okay, now regarding the trichophyton, something, the first one, mostly it is cylindrical, smooth-walled macroconidia it produce. Okay, cylindrical, smooth-walled macroconidia and the microconidia. Okay, so this is microconidia. Fine. So remember one thing here, guys, that this particular cylindrical, or you can say pencil-shaped macroconidia is a feature of trichophyton. Okay, and this is the important trichophyton rubrum, which is in this particular one. And as you can see that this is the macroconidia here, which is which shape? Cylindrical or pencil shape. Okay, and numerous microconidia. So remember, trichophyton is having a feature that it is having cylindrical macroconidia along with numerous microconidia, small spore. Conidia is what? Spore. Right? So one is rubrum, which is very famous dermatophyte. Another one is mantigrophytes. This is also very famous one, and this looks like this particular one. Then violatium is also there in this particular one, which associates with the mostly Taenia capitis and all, Taenia violatium. Now regarding the microsporium and all, that is a multicellular macroconidia with rough walls. Okay, so remember in this, what I want to tell you, that the microsporium, the shape of the macroconidia, if somebody asks you, that looks like a spindle shape. Okay, so what you are seeing up in this is termed as spindle shape. Spindle shape macroconidia. That is a feature of microsporium. It is having a spindle shaped macroconidia. This is macro. This is macroconidia. Okay, so this is gypsum, this particular one, and this is canis. This particular is canis, and this one is gypsum. So nobody will be asking you that what is the shape of them. Just for the showing purpose, I'm showing up. Gypsum looks like this, canis looks like this. Okay, and these are the macroconidia, which are what? Spindle shape. And if somebody asks you regarding the microconidia here, so they are few. Okay, few microconidia or less microconidia is a feature of microsporum. That is a feature of microsporum. Okay, epidermophyton. Epidermophyton, only the macroconidia is there, and which looks like what? Smooth walled and clavate. This name clavate you need to remember, and this clavate is having the another name, that is, it looks like a club shape or boat shape. Okay, this particular one looks like what? Club or boat shape. Now, so that is what is the pathogenesis and immunity concerned with it. By contact with the dermatophytes in the soil, animals, or by direct contact or the fomites, the infection happens up. Okay, and how does the infection increase up in a particular host? That is by the moisture, by the vomit, by the genetic predisposition, and the skin composition of the sebum. So mostly these dermatophyte infections, they happen by what? Contact with the soil, animals, or by the direct contact of fomites. One thing. Another one is this particular host susceptibility increased by what particular thing? So remember, that is by the moisture. Okay, moisture is there, warmth is there, genetic predisposition, and the skin composition of the sebum. Okay, these particular things, they determine the increase in the susceptibility. Okay, so these are the various ones: anthropophilic, zoophilic, and geophilic. Fine. Anthropophilic, zoophilic, and geophilic, and their name itself they suggest, that is zoophilic from the animal, geophilic from the soil, and anthropophilic from the other sources. Okay, the clinical features. So these are terms as ringworms, various infections. The first one is Taenia corporis. Okay, the lesions are annular in this particular one. They are sharply marginated with raised borders. Okay, and this postular cell is circumscribed, elevated, crusted lesion, which is also termed as Majorcy's granuloma. This question was there in the PGI Chandigarh. Okay, so remember guys, in the tinea corporis, the lesions are annular, they are sharply marginated with raised borders, and the postural will is having a circumscribed, elevated, crusted lesion that is termed as Majorcy's granuloma. Okay, this name you need to remember. That's Majorcy's granuloma associates with what? Tinea corporis, and they are annular, sharply marginated with raised borders. Okay, and most of them, they are being done by what? Tinea rubrum, which we have shown up in the starting. This Trichophyton rubrum. This caused by Trichophyton rubrum. Tinea capitis. Capitis means the scalp involvement. Okay, the capitis means the scalp involvement, and in this particular one, that is the scalp involvement, that is the shaft of the hairs of the scalp, they are involved up, and that leads to what? Alopecia and the scarring. Alopecia and the scarring. So Trichophyton and microsporum, they involved in that. Now, in the Tinea capitis, two names you need to remember. One is chorion and one is favus. Okay. So first of all, if we go for that, what is chorion and what is favus? So remember, the chorion is dense crust formation, that is termed as, in fact chorion, if we go by, that is a different entity which is being shown up in this picture. That is a boggy swelling over the scalp. Okay, the boggy swelling over the scalp, that is termed as chorion. Okay, and it's a painful, severe form of inflammatory reaction, and this type of boggy swelling is formed. Okay, so boggy swelling over the scalp, and that too painful. It is painful, that you need to remember. And the chorion is mostly caused by Trichophyton mentigrophytes. Okay, Trichophyton mentigrophytes and Trichophyton verrucosum. Okay, so these are the two which associates with chorion. Okay, painful boggy swelling over the scalp and caused by what? Mentigrophytes and verrucosum. This you need to remember. Then in the favus, you need to remember, that is the dense crust formation over the scalp. Okay, dense crust formation over the scalp, that is termed as favus, and the favus is caused by what? Trichophyton schonleni. Okay, and this is a frequently asked question, that favus is caused by what? That is being caused by Trichophyton schonleni. This also need to remember. Okay, then in the same Tinea capitis, you have actothrix also, and you have antothrix also. Okay, so actothrix means around the hairs, the sheath of spores you will observe, and arthroconidia, they are observed within the hair shaft. Okay, and you already know what is arthroconidia. They are rectangular one, and they are seen in the endothrix stuff. Okay, actothrix is observed, is caused by mostly Microsporum canis and Microsporum ordini. So these two names you need to remember. One is Microsporum canis and Mycosporum ordini. Endothrix is caused by, you remember, that is being caused by TVS. T is Trichophyton tonsurens, V is violatium, okay, and S is schonleni. S is schonleni. And you remember just now, schonleni was doing something else also. It was doing what? It was doing favus. Okay, so in front of them you just write up Trichophyton tonsurens, Trichophyton violatium, Trichophyton schonleni. That is there in the endothrix. That is within the hair shaft, and ectothrix is around the hair shaft. Okay, Now, how you go for the lab diagnosis of dermatophytes? So remember guys, in this what you do, first of all, like in this it is written up like the wood lamp examination and all, but I will just tell you once what we do in this. Okay, remember in the practical way how you go for, first of all you put up those scrapings you take from the skin. Okay, so skin scrapings will be there, nails will be there, fine, nail clippings, infected nail clippings, that is you have clippings, clipped nails. Okay, skin scrapings, nail clippings, infected hairs. These three things you will take as per the dermatophytes. Okay, and these ones they are being put into what? 10% QH. Okay, 10% QH, and you leave them for some time, and after that when you observe them, after putting up 10% QH, what you find in them is fungal elements. Okay, what you find in them is fungal elements are observed, and you make an initial diagnosis. Yes, the fungal infection is there in this particular scraping, in this clipping, or in this infected hair. Okay, other than this, what you can do, direct examination you can do under wood lamp, and like this tinea capitis which you have talked about, these infected hairs, they exhibit what? Greenish fluorescence. So that is what I have told you. Either you go for this particular one, okay, or you just pick up these things and you put them into wood lamp and it will show what? Greenish fluorescence. Okay, so just to give you an idea that what you do in that. Tinea barbae, that is the barber's itch, also termed as, and it is the infection of the beard area of the face. So that is there. Okay, then this is tinea crudis, infection of the groin seen in the men and involves what? Perineum, scrotum and perianal region. Okay, remember it is being asked that what is the other name of tinea crudis. The other name of tinea crudis is dhobi itch or jock itch. Dhobi itch or jock itch is the other name of tinea crudis, and that obviously the name is, the itching is a predominant feature, that's why it is termed as that. Tinea venom, the infection of the skin of the hands, this is tinea venom, and it is being caused by rubrum, mentigrophytes and epidermophyton floccusum. Okay, so tinea venom is done by all these three fungus. Tinea unguum, infection of the nail plates at the free edge of the nail. Athlete's foot, which is termed as tinea pedis, so that you observed up, and also known as what? Sandal ringworm, because in that particular area it happens where you wear the sandals and all, so that's termed as sandal ringworm also. So tinea unguum, tinea pedis, tinea crudis, tinea barbae and tinea capitis, these all infections you need to remember. Okay, in this only one reaction is there which is termed as ID reaction. An ID reaction, wherever this word ID comes, allergy itself comes. So allergic response to the fungal antigens, that is termed as ID reaction, and infection in the feet elicits this allergic reactions on the hand. Okay, so they are showing up in this particular line one thing, that ID reaction have a special feature. What is the special feature? That it is always away from the site. Remember guys, this is always away from the site. It is always away from the site. Okay, that is tinea pedis, which is athlete's foot, elicit the allergic reaction where? On the hands. So this is what is termed as ID reaction, and this is due to what? This is due to the fungal antigens, the dermatophytic fungal antigens in full, if you want to remember. Okay, so remember all this thing. Other than that, in the lab diagnosis, I will give you my input also here, that we have already discussed up, that the skin scrapings, those nails, okay, infected hairs, you have put in 10% KOH, you can see the fungal elements, that's the initial report which you get. Okay, so that is the initial one. But how to diagnose up that which particular fungus is growing up? Is it mentigrophytes, is it rubrum, or is it something else, microsporium or epidermophyton? For that, what you have, that those particular things like skin scrapings which you are having up, okay, skin scrapings, those particular what do you say, nails, infected nails, or hairs, infected hairs, you do what? You put them onto the SDA. Okay, you put them here, you put them into the SDA. So when you put them into SDA, so what will happen? The culture growth will come. So CX stands for what? Culture. CX stands for culture. I've already told you the CX stands for culture. Culture growth will come, but it will take time. It will take 2 to 3 days also. It can goes into weeks also, and some they loves to go in the months also. So fungus are very slow to grow. So culture growth will happen up 2 to 3 days, weeks or months. Okay. So what we are doing up, we are doing the final lab diagnosis. The initial one what we have done, we have put it in 10% KOH and we can be able to see what fungal elements. But now what we are doing with them, we are putting them on the SDA because we want to identify a basic fungus, that this is the organism which is responsible. So to identify that, you have to do this. You have to put them on SDA. Then you have to look out for the culture growth, which can happen in 2 to 3 days also. It can take some weeks also and in some months also. Okay, so SDA you can use, or you can use DTM, that is dermatophyte identifying media, DTM or DIM also they say. So that is dermatophyte identification media. Dermatophyte identification media. So this also you can put in the SDA or in the DIM, dermatophyte identification media. Okay, and you have to wait for this much time. Okay, so you have done all this. Then what you do after doing all this, then you observe the growth, culture growth, and you take the culture growth with the help of a needle. Okay, and you put that culture growth into LPCB, this particular stain, LPCB, and you make a mount of it. So this is what is termed as LPCB mount. And what you observe in this LPCB mount is that for the trichophyton, for the microsporum, and for the epidermophyton, you need to remember certain points. What are those points? Like for macroconidia, like for microconidia, you will observe these things under the microscope. Conidias, macroconidia or microconidia. Okay, I have already told you what is macro. Macro means a big spore, micro means a small spore. Trichophyton, if you remember up initial ones, that is which particular shape? Cylindrical. And I've told you the other name of it, that is pencil. So one is cylindrical and one is pencil. Microsporum, that is spindle shape. Okay, microsporum, that is spindle shape. So that also need to remember. And this epidermophyton, the last one, it looks like a clavate if you remember. Okay, clavate, or it is club or board shape. It is club or board shape. So one is cylindrical or pencil, one is spindle, and one is club or board shape. And the microconidia in this side, they are numerous. So this question comes that numerous microconidia is a feature of. The answer is trichophyton. Less or few, they are seen in the microsporum. Okay, epidermophyton, there is a absent microconidia, and this particular thing is a question. What you will observe only the club, boat, or that particular clavate, that type of macroconidia. Whereas in the trichophyton, cylindrical, spindle, in the microsporum, these things you will observe. Okay, so guys, we have covered up the full dermatophytes in this particular fashion along with the pictures and all. Now talking about the subcutaneous mycosis. Okay, now talking about the subcutaneous mycosis, and you already know that what comes in subcutaneous mycosis. I have already told you the mnemonic for that, that is MRCS. Okay, M is what? M is mycetoma. R is what? R is rhinosporidiosis. C is what? Chromo also you can say, or chromoblastomycosis. Okay, chromomycosis also they say, and the chromoblastomycosis. S is sporotrichosis. Okay, sporotrichosis. So these particular four ones, what they are subcutaneous mycosis. And what is subcutaneous mycosis? Skin and subcutaneous tissue that is involved. Skin and subcutaneous tissue that is involved in the subcutaneous mycosis. Okay. Now, first of all, if we talk about the mycetoma, mycetoma is also termed as Madhura foot. Okay, it is also termed as Madhura foot. And why it is termed as Madhura foot? Because it was discovered in Madurai district of Tamil Nadu. So that's why it is termed as what? Madhura foot. This Madhura foot is actually of two types. One is actinomycetoma and one is eumycetoma. Okay, one is actinomycetoma and one is eumycetoma. Fine. Actinomycetoma, you already know, that is the bacterial one which does this actinomycetoma. Eumycetoma is fungal one. So this one is fungal. Okay, this one is fungal and this one is bacterial. Okay, actinomycetoma and eumycetoma. Actinomycetoma, you remember certain features regarding them, that numerous sinus and swelling. Numerous sinus and swelling, that is a feature of actinomycetoma. You remember in mycetoma you have sinus and swelling. Okay, that is also termed as tumefaction because it looks like a tumor. So numerous sinus and swelling, they are seen in the actinomycetoma, whereas in this there is a single sinus and swelling. In this side there is a single sinus and swelling in the case of eumycetoma. Okay, then you remember which type of discharge comes out of it. So remember, the actinomycetoma, it is mostly the purulent discharge which comes. Okay, and in this side mostly the serous discharge comes. In the eumycetoma mostly the serous discharge comes, and in this side it is the purulent discharge which comes. The most important thing which comes as a question here is granules color. So remember, in actinomycetoma the color is, in fact it can be white, it can be yellow, and even it can be red. Okay, it can be white, it can be yellow, or it can be red. Fine. And here only you remember up that this red color one, the example is actinomadhure palatri, and remember from this R, that particular red color granule. Okay, actinomadhure palatri. So white, yellow and red. Actinomadhure palatri is having the red color granules, and this is already a asked question. Okay, then you remember that in whom the white and yellow granules and they are observed up. So if you remember that particular one, oral actinomycosis, that is the cervicofacial one, in that the sulfur granules are there. The sulfur granules mostly they are yellow in color. Okay, so white and yellow, they are found in which particular species? You remember like this. They are found in actinomadhure. Okay, they are found in actinomadhure. Some Nocardia species are also involved in this, that is Nocardia cavei, Nocardia asteroids, okay, Nocardia cavei, Nocardia asteroids, and Nocardia brasiliensis. Okay, these all are there in which you can find yellow or white color granules. Okay, to be more specific, you just remember of Actinomytres pallidary is having the red color granule, whereas in this side it is black colored as well as white colored. In this particular side, either it is black or either it is white. So black colored granules, they are seen in Madhurella, mycetomatous, or Madhurella gricia. The one is Madhurella mycetomatous and one is Madhurella gricia. They are having the black colored granule. Okay, white color, they are observed in Acrimonium, and one species you need to remember the name, that is Pseudo-Alestria boydii. The one is Acrimonium and one is Pseudo-Alestria boydii. It is having a white color granule. Okay, and both of these questions are being asked, that in the eumycetoma the white color granules are observed in. So remember that particular one, that is observed in Acrimonium and Pseudo-Alestria boydii. Okay, then further you need to remember that when these granules, they are picked out and they are crushed, okay, granules are crushed, what you observe in the actinomycetoma side, you will observe the bacteria and their size is less than 2 micron. Okay, so less than 2 micron bacilli, they are seen in this side, and in this side you will find more than 2 micron fungal colonies or more than 2 micron fungal hyphae. Okay, so these are observed up in this side when the granules are crushed, and they are observed up when the granules are crushed in the case of actino. Okay, so that and that you need to remember. So granules are crushed, less than 2 micron bacilli are seen in this side. Granules are crushed, more than 2 micron fungal colonies or more than 2 micron fungal hyphae, that is observed in this particular side. Another thing which you need to remember, that if you go for X-ray, suppose you go for radiological examination here, in this side you will find osteolytic lesions. Okay, osteolytic lesions are observed in this side, and on the side of eumycetoma you will find osteosclerotic lesions. Okay, in this side you will find what? Osteosclerotic lesions. In this side osteolytic, and in this side osteosclerotic. So that also you need to remember. On the X-ray, these findings you need to observe. Then what is the treatment in this side? That is we are talking about here actino, and in this side we are talking eumycetoma. So the treatment in this particular side of actinomycetoma, they respond beautifully to the antibiotics. They respond well to the antibiotics, but the other way around in this side is it poorly respond to the antifungals. Okay, this particular one poorly respond to what? Antifungals. So that's why mostly the best treatment in this side is to go for amputation of the limb. Okay, you have to go for the amputation of the limb which is affected up, because in this side they do not respond to the antifungals. So to save up or to like limit up the spread, you have to go for what? Amputation of the limb. So remember, it poorly respond to the antifungals, and thereby you have to carry what? Amputation of the limb, and they respond well to the antibiotics. Okay, so this much you need to remember in the mycetoma. So mycetoma is also termed as what? Madhura foot, that I've already told you. Okay, it is having these particular ones, that is 3 types of like colors of granules: white, yellow and red. Red is asked question, that is seen in actinomatherae palatri. Okay, in this side you need to remember the white colored one, and that is acrimonium and pseudo-alisteria boydii. These two you need to remember. And remember one more thing, actinomycetoma is not only caused by actinomyces, it is also caused by what? Nocardia, first thing. Okay, then if you go for X-ray and all, then you can see, observe this, osteolytic lesions and osteosclerotic lesions on the side of fungal one, and they respond beautiful to the antibiotics. Which one? Actino. And mycetoma poorly respond to the antifungals. That's why you have to carry what? Amputation of the limb. Okay, so that you need to remember regarding mycetoma. One more thing you need to remember here, that one more which looks like mycetoma like lesion. Okay, mycetoma like lesion, as a star note you can write up, that is termed as butyriomycosis, which is actually not mycetoma, but it looks like mycetoma. Butyriomycosis, that is mycetoma like lesion, butyriomycosis. And this particular butyriomycosis is mainly caused by Staph aureus. Number of other fellows they are also involved up, like E. coli and all that, but mainly you remember that the Staph aureus produces what? Mycetoma like lesion, which looks like mycetoma, but actually it is not related with Madhura foot and all. It looks like mycetoma, and that is mainly caused by what? Staph aureus. So this much you need to remember regarding the mycetoma. The next subcutaneous mycosis is rhinosporidiosis. Okay, rhinosporidiosis, that is the next one which you need to remember. Rhinosporidiosis is caused by Rhinosporidium seaberry. Okay, that is being caused by Rhinosporidium seaberry, and it's a controversial fungus. Some say it's not a fungus, and they truly say that because now in the standard book of ENT, it have become what? Aquatic protist. So this confusion is over now, that it's a fungus or a protist or a protozoa and all. So remember, it's a aquatic protist, and to be more precise, they have mentioned it in what? Aquatic protozoa. Okay, so now it is what? It is a aquatic protozoa, to be more precise. Okay, aquatic protozoa. So this confusion is over, that it's a fungus on this. They have termed it as aquatic protozoa. You can mark this as an answer in the question. Okay, then why we are studying it here in the fungus? So remember, it presents up with unilateral or bilateral nasal polyp. That is what is the most common presentation. Okay, the most common presentation is unilateral or bilateral nasal polyps. Fine. And to make the diagnosis, when you go for polyp biopsy of these particular fellows, what you get in that? You get a spherule in that biopsy, and within that spherule you will get what? You will get the endospores. So this particular one is a characteristic feature of this polyp biopsy, that within the spherule you will get what? Endospores. Okay, so that is seen in the rhinosporidiosis. Polyp biopsy, you go, you see a spherule, and within that spherule what are present? These particular endospores. One thing. Then what is the treatment of these polyps and treatment of this rhinosporidiosis? So medical treatment is there, but the best is to go for surgical removal of the polyps. Okay, surgical removal of the polyps, that is the best to go for. Surgical removal of the polyps. Fine. The best is to go for surgical removal of the polyp. And remember one important point last, that why it is controversial, why it is not called a fungus, because it's showing a feature of spherule with endospores as a fungus, but still it is not being called as a fungus, because the main thing is it is non-cultured on the universal fungal culture media SDA. So it is non-cultured on SDA. So this is the reason why we consider it as a controversial one. But now that controversy is also over. It is termed as what? It is termed as aquatic protozoa. Okay. So remember guys, this is regarding the rhinosporidiosis. Now talking about the chromomycosis or chromoblastomycosis. Chromomycosis or chromoblastomycosis. Chromoblastomycosis, as such a name only suggests chromo means color. Okay, chromo means color, and in this particular chromo, which means color, they're also termed as demataceous fungus. They're also termed as what? They are also termed as demataceous fungus. Okay, or the other name of them is, they all are termed as pigmented fungus. So demataceous fungus or pigmented fungus, that is what is termed as chromoblastomycosis. Okay. So remember, as you already know, skin and subcutaneous tissue, that is involved in this, because it is a subcutaneous mycosis. Okay. The skin and subcutaneous tissue is involved, first thing. Second thing here is that how the question comes. So I've seen a question here in the All India exam in which the history is there of the thorn prick. Okay, so remember it associates with thorn prick as well as wood prick, and obviously it will happen to those who works with them, like the thorn prick will happen to the gardener, or wood prick will happen to a woodworker. Okay, so suppose somebody have got a thorn prick or wood prick, and after that developed a lesion. Okay, and that lesion is termed as what? Varicose lesion. That particular lesion is termed as what? Varicose lesion. Okay, because of the thorn prick and wood prick, they develop a varicose lesion, and this varicose lesion is also termed as what? Warty lesion. And when somebody goes for the biopsy of this varicose or warty lesion, suppose we have gone for the biopsy of this warty lesion, in fact I should say like this, the biopsy of the warty lesion, what you observe in that, you observe after staining with H and E, that is hematoxylin and eosin stain, you could able to see up what? You could able to see up certain bodies which are brown in color. They are globose, brown globose bodies called as sclerotic body. Okay, called as sclerotic bodies or medullary bodies. Sclerotic bodies or medullary bodies, and these sclerotic body or medullary bodies, they look like copper penny appearance. Okay, they have a copper penny appearance. And remember guys, this question was there in fact in every entrance exam since 2 years, that the copper penny appearance, medullary bodies and sclerotic bodies, they are seen in. So answer is, they are seen in chromomycosis or chromoblastomycosis. Okay, and how does they look like? Let me show you. This is what is the melanized sclerotic cells, sclerotic bodies, medullary bodies, and H and E stain there, and they look like this. That is the brown globose, and they look like what? They look like copper penny appearance. Okay, so remember, this is what is the medullary bodies which you need to remember in the chromoblastomycosis. A definite question. Now coming to the examples of it, that what are the various chromoblastomycosis example. So remember, the various chromoblastomycosis examples are alternaria. Okay, alternaria, bipolaris, then curvularia, then Phylophora, Cladosporium, Exophylla. These are the various pigmented fungus, okay, which you need to remember, which comes in this family, chromoblastomycosis. Okay, so that is regarding the chromoblastomycosis, which is a subcutaneous mycosis. Now this one, that is the sporotrichosis. This particular sporotrichosis, you need to remember, is being caused by Sporotrix, skinky, shanky, whatever you want to call it. That is the name of the fungus. So sporotrichosis is caused by this particular fungus termed as Sporotrix shanky, and this particular one mostly associates with thorn prick, and it happens to those who works in rose gardeners, okay, rose gardens and all, and that's why it is also termed as what? Rose gardener's disease. And interestingly, it is given in the literature that this particular disease increase in and around Valentine's time. Okay, so remember that thing also. Besides this, because that fellow have to pick lot of pick out a lot of roses and all, and thereby gets what? Thorn prick. Now, the most common variety and the most important one is lymphocutaneous spread. Okay, so lymphocutaneous type or lymphocutaneous spread, that is the most commonly seen in this. Okay, from the cutaneous it goes into lymphatics, and thereby it becomes subcutaneous later. Okay, subcutaneous it has become, and then it can go to what? Lymphatics and all, and later on it can become deep also. So lymphocutaneous spread is seen in this particular sporotrichosis. This you need to observe. Okay, then if you remember that this is a dimorphic fungus, and what are the feature of dimorphic fungus? They have at 22 to 25 degrees centigrade, they exist as what? They exist as molds. Okay, and at 37 it exists as yeast. I've told na, mold at 22 to 25 carat, so 37 they exist as yeast. So remember, what is the mold form of it? How does it looks like in the mold form? So mold form of this particular one looks like a flower like sporulation. It looks like a beautiful flower like sporulation. Okay, that is a mold form. Then in the yeast form, you need to remember, in the yeast form it looks like how? It looks like cigar shaped yeast cell. Cigar shaped yeast cell. So that also you need to remember, it looks like a cigar shaped yeast cell. Another name is or narrow based budding. Narrow based budding yeast cell. Okay, so one is flower like sporulation and one is what? Cigar shaped yeast cell or narrow based budding yeast cell in this particular one. Along with that, you remember one more thing. Here certain bodies are seen that is termed as asteroid bodies. They are observed in the sporotrichosis, asteroid bodies. Remember, a phenomena is observed here, that is basophilic material. Okay, the basophilic material is surrounded by eosinophilic material. A basophilic material is surrounded by eosinophilic material, and this particular deposition is termed as a phenomena, and the phenomena name is what? Splendor-Hopeley phenomena. Okay, the phenomena name is what? Splendor-Hopeley phenomena. So this also need to remember. The asteroid bodies are observed up, and which looks like what? A basophilic material surrounded by eosinophilic material, which is also termed as what? Which is also termed as splendor Hopefully phenomena. Okay, splendor Hopefully phenomena. So these important points you need to remember regarding this subcutaneous mycosis. And remember one thing, sporo is a dimorphic fungus which mainly is subcutaneous mycosis. This is an exception, remember this. Otherwise, mostly dimorphic ones, what they are deep mycosis. Okay, so remember that thing also. Now starting with the deep mycosis, and the first one in that is histoplasmosis, that is also termed as what? Darling's disease. Okay, it's a systemic granulomatous intracellular infection. Okay, and it affects what? It affects the reticuloendothelial system. What it does affect? It affects the reticuloendothelial system, and it is being caused by a dimorphic fungus termed as Histoplasma capsulatum. Okay, and why it is known as dimorphic was because it exists in yeast as well as mold form. Yeast at 37 and mold at 22 to 25 degree centigrade. Okay, so that is what is regarding the histo, first of all. Then what are the various sources of the infection in this? So first of all, regarding the sources, it is from the droppings. Droppings from where? From the pigeons. Okay, pigeon droppings, or in the bat droppings. Okay, in these all droppings, this particular fungus is found in the form of multicellular filamentous mycelia, and the mode of transmission obviously is what? Through the aerosols. So aerosol transmission happens up here. Okay, aerosol transmission happens up here, and the incubation period of this transmission is how much? That is 10 to 16 days. Okay, so actually what happens here is, so as you can see now, that these particular spores are being inhaled by this fellow. So inhalation, aerosol transmission is there in this, and incubation period is around 10 to 16 days of histoplasmosis. And what happens in most of the dimorphic diseases like these all, aerosol transmission happens up, there is an involvement of lung, that is the lung involvement is there, and after the lung involvement, you remember it goes into the blood, that is the hematogenous spread is there. Fine, it goes into the blood, and from the blood it goes into the viscerals, and thereby it involves what? The various visceral organs like spleen, liver and all that, and that's why it is termed as what? Systemic mycosis or deep mycosis. Okay, so remember this thing also. Then what are the clinical features of this particular disease? So regarding the clinical features, if you go for, firstly, in the acute stage, it is involving what? The lungs and all. So that is a influenza like disease. Okay, that is what? That is an influenza like disease, and this resolves, it takes around 2 to 3 weeks to resolve, and it shows lymphocyte rich infiltrate in the lungs. Okay, so this is the first one, that is pulmonary disease, acute form, influenza like disease. But in the chronic form, you remember this thing, that it exists in, but it exists with the form like all the features of hemoptysis, apical cavities and calcification. So this question comes that the chronic form of histoplasmosis resembles what? So remember, it resembles TB. Okay, the chronic histoplasmosis resembles what? Tuberculosis, and it looks like this. Okay, then regarding the other involvement other than lungs and all, it involves the skin also, and this is what is the dermal involvement. Cutaneous and subcutaneous disease exist in the form of petechial lesions. So these are the various petechial lesions observed in the cutaneous form of histoplasmosis. Okay, so these all are cutaneous forms of histoplasmosis, lesions on the palm and cutaneous lesions on the hand. Okay, then in the disseminated disease also, it exists with following features. So means one is pulmonary, one is cutaneous, and one form is dissemination. That is disseminated disease. It exists with anemia, leukopenia, hepatosplenomegaly, and multiple lymphadenopathy. So that particular form is termed as what? Disseminated disease of histoplasmosis. Okay. Regarding the lab diagnosis, in the lab diagnosis, obviously, what samples you will take? Firstly, you prefer to take the sputum. in the pulmonary one. You can go for bone marrow also, sternal bone marrow. And the third one is from the lymph nodes, you can take the biopsy and all. Okay. And the microscopy is done which particular stains? One is Giemsa and one is Gram stain. Okay, Giemsa and Gram stain, you go for microscopy. Okay, and what you observe after staining up all these materials, you find intracellular oval budding yeast cells. Okay, intracellular oval budding yeast cells, they are observed up in this particular staining of Giemsa and Gram stain. Of which particular samples? Like sputum, sternal bone marrow and lymph nodes. Now, if we go for the culture and all, so culture is done on the universal culture media, that is the Sebrod dextrose agar, and what you add to that is actidione. And why you making adding all these things? To make it more specific for the fungus to grow, and it grows with a white cottony mycelial growth. This particular fungus, Histoplasma capsulatum, grows with white cottony mycelial growth with tuberculate spores. Okay, it have tuberculate spores. So this spores, they are also termed as macroconidia, and this is the mold form of it, which we are talking about now, that mold form, that 22-25. So that is the mold form. So this is what is the mold form of it, that is the tuberculate macroconidia or tuberculate spore. Okay, and this looks like this one. This is what is typical of tuberculate macroconidia. Okay, this is typical of this is tuberculate macroconidia, which looks like a sunflower. Then other media which you can use is potato dextrose agar. Other than the Sebrod dextrose agar, you can use potato dextrose agar also. And in all of the dimorphic diseases, remember these four things are done as a serology one. One is immunodiffusion, the first one. Second one is latex agglutination. The third one is complement fixation test. And this skin test is done in every dimorphic disease. That is the histoplasmin skin test, which is which type of hypersensitivity? That is a delayed type of hypersensitivity. Okay, so these all, they look like tuberculin test and leptomin test, and they all are delayed type hypersensitivity. Immunodiffusion is a type of precipitation reaction. Then you can do agglutination also, that is termed as latex agglutination, and you have this complement fixation test also for this particular histoplasmosis. Okay, so in short, what I want to tell you here, that the mold form of this looks like a tuberculate macroconidia. This is the thing which you need to focus up, that the mold form looks like a tuberculate macroconidia, and the yeast form of this looks like cigar shaped. Okay, cigar shaped, so not exactly cigar shaped it is. So that looks like a, not exactly cigar shaped, but it looks like one of the forms of sporo, that is the narrow based budding. Okay, narrow based budding of E cell, narrow based budding of E cell, because cigar shaped is typical of sporo. So narrow based budding E cell is observed in this particular one. Okay, and what is that? Like this is termed as narrow based budding E cell, and tuberculate, I have already shown you the picture. It looks like a sunflower. Okay, it looks like a sunflower. Now the next one we'll take is blasto, and the blastomycosis is also termed as North American blastomycosis, Gilchrist disease, or Chicago disease. Three names are there: North American blasto, Gilchrist disease, and Chicago disease. Okay, so caused by what? First of all, the fungus, that is blastomyces dermatitis. Okay, so that is dermatitis, also like the right turn, and dermatitis, A instead of I. Infection happens by what? The same thing, inhalation of spores, that is the conidia. And there is a pyogranulomatous fungal infection of the respiratory tract. Pus is there, and the granulomatous formation is there in the respiratory tract, that is pyogranulomatous. And there is a dissemination where? To the skin, to the bone, and to the genitourinary system. Okay, so there is a dissemination to the skin, bone, and genitourinary system. So this also need to remember. Okay, So in the blasto, the important thing is the various features. Okay. So first of all, one is pulmonary one, other one is cutaneous one, this one. And how it inoculates with the help of trauma and all, it get inoculated up and leads to this cutaneous blastomycosis. That is the papule. Then the secondary nodules, they are formed up and they form ulcers here. So that is what is a cutaneous form of blastomycosis. Okay, so that also exists up. The commonest is this only in fact. Okay, the papule, then the secondary nodules, and they combine to form up the ulcer. That is there. And the pulmonary, which we had just talked by the conidia and all, it resembles also pulmonary TB and carcinoma also, because it gives that type of picture. Okay, blasto, it resembles pulmonary TB and even carcinoma. And here also the dissemination is there. The dissemination blasto, hematogenous spread happens to the bones and to the genitourinary tract. So that particular thing also exists up. That is known as disseminated blastomycosis. Okay. And in the lab diagnosis, you will have the pus, you will have the sputum, you will have the tissues, and the bile fluid. That is the bronchoalveolar lavage fluid. That is bile. So pus is there, sputum is there, tissues are there, and bronchoalveolar lavage. That is, these all things are taken up in the lab diagnosis. And when you go for the microscopy, what you observe in this, that is multiple budding E cells, they are observed up. Okay, you can use this fluorescent stain calcofluor white to observe the things. Okay, and you can culture it. Okay, and you can culture, and what you can find on the culture, fluffy white to tan colored fine branched filaments with conidia on the terminals. Okay, I repeat that on the SDA culture at 25 degree, that is you need to have the mold form, which is not much characteristic of this. You find fluffy white to tan colored fine branched filaments with conidia on the terminals. Okay, so the thing to be remembered in this is that you can culture on SDA, and rarely you can culture it on brain heart infusion, also BHI at 37. This is 37 degree. Okay, waxy and heaped mass, that is observed up in the BHI, waxy, and it likes like a heap. Fine. So the guys, the important thing to remember regarding the blasto, which have come in the exam also, is that it have a figure of 8 appearance of the E cell. Figure of 8 appearance of the E cell, and the E cell, you know, is formed at which temperature? 37. Okay, and at 25 you already know that it looks like what? Fluffy white to tan colored fine branch filaments. Okay, so that also you need to remember, the figure of 8. And the other name of this figure of 8 is what? The other name of this same thing is broad based budding. Okay, the other name of the same thing is broad based budding E cell. Broad based budding E cell. So that also you need to remember, figure of 8 or broad based budding. That is typical of blasto. And what are the other names of it? Gilchrist disease, North American disease. Okay, so these are the various names: North American, Chicago, and Gilchrist disease. Not talking about this particular one, that is the another dimorphic one, that is the coccidiioides immitis. It is a pathogenic dimorphic fungus. Okay, in culture it produces arthroconidia. Okay, within the mycelia it produces what? Arthroconidia. So arthroconidia is the mold form of it, and in the tissues, that is the body one, it produces what? Spherule with endospores. So this is the first question itself, that how does it exist of? So remember, at 25 degrees centigrade or 22, it exists arthroconidia, and at 37 degree it exists as spherules with endospores. So this also you need to remember. Fine. So this coccidiioides immitis is found in the soil, and it grows as a mold under the dry conditions. Okay. Arthroconidia, they break out of the mycelia and become airborne, and thereby the infection happens. So, okay. Clinical features, obviously, what is being involved of? Mainly the lungs, and the primary type of this is termed as what? Sen-Jaquin Valley fever and the desert rheumatism. Sen-Jaquin Valley fever and the desert rheumatism. That is the pulmonary infection which are there in this. St. Jackson Valley fever or desert rheumatism. That is what is the pulmonary infection of this one, and both of them they are being asked. And how does it happen? Inhalation of conidia. I've already told you before that in all the dimorphic one, it is the inhalation of the conidia only which leads to these infections, pulmonary one. And again, acute self-influenza like illness, self-limiting, and sometimes bronchopneumonia rarely can happen. So this is the acute form. Acute pulmonary infections, that is also termed as St. Jackson Valley fever or desert rheumatism, and it happens by what? Inhalation of conidia. It is an acute influenza-like illness. Okay. Then here also the cutaneous type is there, which starts with a nodule. Then the ulceration is there, and the DD of this is syphilitic or TB ulcer. You can have the DD of this one. Then lymphangitis associates with this, and lymphadenopathy also associates with this primary cutaneous type. Okay. Then the dissemination one, that is the rare one, fatal if occurs. And what is the formation? Granulomas. So it also comes in the DD of granulomas. Granulomas into internal organs, meninges, bones, joints, they can be involved in this disseminated type. So one thing is for sure, up to here, whatever dimorphic disease we have heard of, they all are causing what? Pulmonary infections, cutaneous infections, and one is dissemination. Okay. Then in the lab diagnosis of this one, in the cutaneous stuff, skin scrapings, pulmonary sputum, bronchial washings in the pulmonary one, CSF also sometimes, and the pleural fluid and blood, they can be taken as a sample. Okay. And you can go for direct microscopy, and in the direct microscopy, what you can observe? You can observe the sporangia. Okay, what you can observe? The sporangia, and within this sporangia or this spherule, what you have? You have endospores. Okay, so that you should need to remember. And into the tissue section, this particular one, spherules of coccidioides immitis with endospores, that is observed in this particular one. Okay, so in the direct microscopy also you can find the sporangia, and in the tissue section you can find these spherules with endospores. Okay, so that is the characteristic of what? Characteristic of coccidioides immitis infection, that is coccidioidomycosis. Okay, so direct microscopy you can see the sporangia, which looks like a spherule, which is actually a feature of what? Tissue section one with endospores. Okay, and the same thing, cerebrodextrose agar you can use to grow it at 25 degrees centigrade. Brain heart infusion with 5% sheep blood, that can also be used up. Okay, so that is there. In the microscopic morphology, when you grow it up, it looks like what? Single-celled, hyaline, rectangular to barrel-shaped alternate arthroconidia. So remember, what is this arthroconidia? This arthroconidia looks like a rectangle. Okay, that is termed as arthroconidia. And this is a spherule which is putting out what? Endospores. So these two forms are very important here. So just remember in a nutshell here that at 25 degrees centigrade, that is the mold form. The mold form looks like a arthroconidial one. Okay, it looks like a arthroconidial arrangement. Okay, it looks like a arthroconidial arrangement, and at 37 this looks like a, okay, so at 37 there is the east form. The east form of this looks like a spherule with endospores. A spherule with endospores, which is also a feature of which particular disease? That is also a feature of Rhinospodium seaberry infection, that is rhinospodiosis. So remember, at 25 that is the mold form, arthroconidial arrangement, and at the east form, at 37 it is the east form, that is the spherule with endospores. They are observed in this particular one. Skin test, again the same thing. Coccidioidone skin testing you will do, DTH, and the serological test you can do complement fixation test and the immunodiffusion test. They are the same in all. Okay. Now, paracoccidioides brasiliensis, that is the also termed as South American disease. Okay, it is also termed as South American disease. or it is also termed as Lutz mycosis. It is also termed as Lutz mycosis. Okay, and this is wrongly written as a, so this particular one is Paracoccidioides brasiliensis, okay, which is termed as South American disease or Lutz mycosis, and this is also dimorphic, we already know. Okay, this Paracoccidioides brasiliensis leads to which disease? South American disease, which is also termed as Paracoccidioidomycosis. Okay, it leads to this disease that is termed as Paracoccidioidomycosis, and it is common where in the coffee growing belt. Favorable conditions are increased humidity and the decreased temperature of 23 degrees centigrade. These are the conditions in which this particular disease happens up, mostly in the South America like Brazil and all. Okay, so this particular disease, Paracoccidioidomycosis, happens up. You need to remember this. Okay, and this Paracoccidioidomycosis, it exists in which forms? Again, the cutaneous forms, that is the mucocutaneous form, that is the ulcerated lesions they are seen, which you are observing in this particular picture. Okay, then you have the lymphatic form, cervical lymphadenopathy, that is having a bull neck appearance also. Okay, and that same bull neck appearance observed in the diphtheria also. So lymphatic form is also there, the cutaneous form is also there, and the visceral form will definitely exist up, and it spreads by lymphatic or hematogenous route. Okay, 90% of cases they involve the lungs, CNS and the bones also they involve. 90% cases but involve the lungs. And what is there? Bilateral patchy pneumonia like features they are observed in this with a nodular biliary shadow. So that is typical pneumonia like features. So bilateral patchy pneumonia with nodular biliary shadow, they are observed in the visceral form. And lab diagnosis as per the sputum, like the various types, sputum, broncholevel lavage and the pus you can take. And what you can observe in the microscopy, multipolar budding yeast cell. What you can observe? Multipolar budding yeast cell, which looks like a Mickey Mouse appearance. Okay, which looks like what? Mickey Mouse appearance, or you can say mariner's wheel appearance. Mickey Mouse appearance or mariner's wheel appearance. So that also need to remember. This is the mycelial form, which happens to be at 25 degrees centigrade, means that is the mold form of it. And the yeast form of this, I have already told you just now, that is a mariner's wheel, or this particular one, that is Mickey Mouse appearance. So this is that Mickey Mouse or mariner's wheel appearance, or mariner's wheel appearance. Okay, in the serology, same story, latex agglutination test, complement fixation test and immunodiffusion. That is in the serology. And here you can go for CT scan and MRI also to find certain lesions observed in this, in the dissemination type obviously. Okay. Now, if you want to go in a nutshell regarding the various forms, this is the nutshell of various forms in the dimorphic one. Okay. So the first one is that what happens in sporo. Sporo is also dimorphic, but that is not deep mycosis, that's for sure. That's fine. Later on it can become deep mycosis also, sporo, but mainly it is subcutaneous. So this particular mold form, which happens to be at 25 degrees centigrade, termed as flower-like sporulation. Okay, it is termed as flower-like sporulation, and this particular sporotrichosis or sporothrix is having narrow based budding of the yeast cell. This is termed as narrow based. Paracoccidioides, just now we have done it. This is the mold form of it. Mold happens at 25, and this is that mold form of it, and this is that Mickey Mouse appearance or mariner's wheel appearance. So you have to imagine if the Mickey's ears here, or mariner's wheel appearance, or it also termed as sometimes pilot wheel and mariner's wheels or Mickey Mouse appearance. So that is South American disease, Paracoccidioides mycosis, caused by Paracoccidioides. Histoplasma capsulatum leads to histoplasmosis, and this is termed as tuberculate macroconidia. This particular one is termed as what? Tuberculate macroconidia. Macroconidia means big spore. It looks like a tuberculate, means sunflower like. And along with that you have this narrow based budding. This is termed as narrow based budding. Now talking about the coccidioides, that is coccidioidomycosis, this is termed as arthroconidial arrangement. Okay, arthroconidial arrangement, mold form 25. This is termed as arthroconidial arrangement. And as per the yeast form exists, it exists in the form of spherule, which is having inside what? Endospores. Okay, it is having a spherule, and within that what is present? Within that present is endospores. So that also you need to remember. So blastomyces, this is not important to remember that how does the mold form looks like, but this is important. It looks like a typical 8, and that's why this is incorrectly made here, and it looks like a typical 8, and which is termed as figure of 8 appearance, or another name for the same thing is broad based budding. It is also termed as what? Broad based budding yeast cell. This is broad based budding. Okay, so remember this is termed as broad based budding yeast cells, or it is termed as figure of 8. Okay, and blastomyces leads to North American disease or Chicago disease. So I hope I made myself clear in the various dimorphic ones, that is sporo, paracoccidioides, histoplasma, coccidioides and blastomyces. Penicilliosis and all we'll discuss later. Okay, so this much you need to remember in the various dimorphic one. Now talking about the another opportunistic mycosis infection, that is the candidiasis or candida. Okay, this particular candida, as we know from the initial ones, the classification, it is yeast like. Okay, this particular one is mainly a yeast like fungus. Then the most important species of candida is Candida albicans. Okay, that is what is the most important species of it, termed as Candida albicans. And the Candida albicans, it shows two particular phenomena. One is Reynolds broad phenomenon, that is termed as germ tube formation. Okay, this is termed as germ tube formation. So there is a germ tube formation here, and in this particular one more thing is there, that is the formation of these asexual spores termed as chlamydospores on cornmeal agar. Okay, so this Candida albicans shows two phenomena. One is Reynolds broad phenomena, which is germ tube formation, and another one is chlamydospore formation on the cornmeal agar. This Reynolds broad phenomena, that is germ tubes, is actually formed up when you have this culture growth of Candida and you put it into what? You put it into the human plasma. Okay, when you put it into human plasma, the culture growth of Candida albicans, you can see certain projections coming out, and those projections, they look like this. Okay, they look like this, and that is what is termed as germ tube. So this particular phenomena is seen here, that is termed as germ tube formation. Whereas in the cornmeal agar, this particular one, cornmeal, first of all you need to remember, is a nutrient deficient media. It is a nutrient deficient media, and on this nutrient deficient media, to survive up, it produces asexual spores which are termed as chlamydospores. Okay, so that's why they produce these chlamydospores, which are asexual spores on the cornmeal agar. Okay, so these are the two important questions here, that it produces Reynolds broad phenomena and the chlamydospore formation on cornmeal agar. Candida albicans. This is regarding the Candida albicans. But with this, you need to remember something about the NCA also. And NCA is what? That is the non-Candida albicans. That is termed as non-Candida albicans. And non-Candida albicans are also becoming nowadays famous and important because there is an increase in the antifungal resistance against them. Okay, so that you need to remember. First of all, certain names there. Candida krusei. Okay, Candida kefir, Candida glabrata, Candida stilatodia, Candida guillermondi, okay, Candida tropicalis, and Candida vishwanathi. These are the various names of non-Candida albicans like Candida krusei, Candida kefir, Candida glabrata, Candida stilatodia, Candida guillermondi, Candida tropicalis, and Candida vishwanathi. One more important one is there nowadays, that is Candida auris. Okay, and this Candida auris have caused worldwide infections. It have caused worldwide infections in immunodeficient individuals. So it was a question, like it was there in the news, that this particular have caused a widespread infections all over the world, and mostly in the immunodeficient, obviously. Okay, so need to remember the name. The latest one is Candida auris. Regarding the krusei, this is naturally resistant to the azoles. This particular fungus is naturally resistant to the azoles. So this you need to remember. This is naturally resistant to the azoles, like to the antifungals and all. And why we are concerned about them? Because in all of them, there is an increase in resistance against the antifungals. So that also need to remember. Okay. Now, coming back to the Candida albicans. Candida albicans, you need to remember, leads to number of ailments. Like, it leads to oral thrush. Okay. It leads to oral thrush. This particular leads to esophageal candidiasis, vaginal candidiasis, okay, vaginal candidiasis, oral thrush, esophageal candidiasis, they all are being caused by Candida albicans. Along with that, it causes infection in the blood, that is termed as candidemia, in the urine, that is termed as candiduria. Okay, so this is in the urine, you could able to see the yeast cells, and in the blood you can find the Candida yeast cell, that is candidemia. So one is candidemia, one is candiduria. Other than that, onychomycosis. Okay, the nail folds are involved. That is onychomycosis in this particular Candida infection. Then you can remember up, it can lead to those simple infections like UTI, RTI. RTI is right respiratory tract infections. Okay, RTI is respiratory tract infections, UTI is urinary tract infections. And along with that, you need to remember, rarely it does meningitis. Rarely it does meningitis also. So remember, Candida also associates with meningitis and rarely does it. Okay, but you need to remember, yes, Candida can also do what? Meningitis and all. So these are the various infections which are done by the Candida, and these all names you need to remember. Now, in whom the candida infections are very common. The candida infections are common in the first one, in the neutropenic individuals. Okay, in all those conditions in which CMI is decreased of or CMI is hampered. What is CMI? Cell mediated immunity. Like in the advanced case of HIV positivity, AIDS, where the CD4 count starts falling off. Besides this, any malignancy which happens to affect of the CMI or any condition which affects the CMI, like one of them is chronic mucocutaneous candidiasis. That is a T cell disorder. Okay, that is a T cell disorder in which throughout the life the fellow struggles with candida infection. So this also need to remember. T cell disorder, chronic mucocutaneous candidiasis, malignancies and AIDS. They are there. The various ones, other than this also number of them which hampers this CMI, you need to remember they all can have the candida infection. Okay. Besides this, how we go for the lab diagnosis. Okay, suppose you have any infection and all, you can take the tissue biopsy from there. Okay, you can take the tissue biopsy from there, or you can take the sample from there, samples, and can be anything like pus, urine, okay, sputum, all those samples you can take up, and you can do the gram stain. In the gram stain you can find the E cells and all. Fine. Other than that, you can culture it. Culture on what? Culture on SDA, that is Seborrheic agar, and on this the culture you have creamy, pasty colonies which looks like a toothpaste. That is a characteristic of candida. Creamy pasty colonies on SDA, they comes up. Other than that, what you can do, you can go for chrome agar method. Okay, you can go for chrome agar method, which is a colorful agar and used for candida albicans as well as various non-candida albicans identification. Okay, so this particular name also you need to remember, chrome agar method. Chrome itself means color. Okay, ready-made color agar method is there, in which specific pamphlets are there, according to which the color which is coming up, you can find out that this is tropicalis, this is albicans, this is glaberata, this is that particular species, because that is mentioned up in that particular pamphlet. That is chrome agar method. Okay. Other than that, you have other methods to diagnose it up. That is the sugar fermentation methods, by which you can identify the various candida species and all. Sugar fermentation methods. Okay, they are there. You can find out that which particular sugars are fermented according to the various species. You can find this. Sugar fermentation methods are there. Then you have beta glucan testing here. Okay, so remember this particular material is present in the candida cell wall, beta glucan, and this particular testing is being done, that is beta glucan testing, mostly for the invasive candidiasis. Mostly it is done for what? Invasive candidiasis. Okay, so that also is there. Besides this, Nowadays we have PCR for the various Candida species to get identified. Okay, so we can go for PCR for the various Candida species to be identified. And this was asked in the aims that beta glucan testing is used for. So remember, one of them is candidiasis. So PCR for Candida species is very commonly being done nowadays to identify the various Candida and non-Candida albicans species. Okay. Now we talk about Cryptococcus, okay, and Cryptococcus neoformans. This is what is the most important species of it. And this Cryptococcus neoformans, what you need to remember regarding this fellow, this is also present in pigeon shits. Okay, this is also there in the pigeon feces or pigeon shits, and again the aerosol transmission happens up of this particular fungus. What happens? Aerosol transmission. Okay, so aerosol transmission happens of this particular fungus, Cryptococcus neoformans, from the pigeon feces. Fine. So remember this thing also. And there is a lung involvement, pulmonary involvement, and this pulmonary involvement takes the hematogenous route and takes it where? Takes it to the meninges. So hematogenous spread is there, and this particular hematogenous spread takes it where? To the meninges. This particular one is taken to the meninges, and obviously what does cause there? Meningitis. Okay, but this particular neurotropism, this is sort of a neurotropism. So this neurotropism is not seen in the normal fellows. In all of us, this will not be seen. But which fellows are more susceptible for that? Those which are HIV positive fellows. So remember, HIV positive fellows should be away from this particular pigeon feces, otherwise they might get the infection of Cryptococcus neoformans, and they can lead up with what? Cryptococcal meningitis. Fine. So they should be away from the pigeons, otherwise they are more susceptible to get this cryptococcal meningitis. Fine. So remember that. In fact, you should remember like this: the most common cause of meningitis, the most common cause of meningitis in HIV positive fellows is Cryptococcus neoformans only. Okay, so remember this thing also, that in normal individuals nothing it does. Okay, but in HIV positive it have a neurotropism. It moves towards the meninges and cause meningitis and leads to this particular stuff. Okay, so remember this also. Then if meningitis is happening up, obviously in the LD, that is the lab diagnosis, which is the sample you will take? You will take the CSF sample. What you will take? You will take the CSF sample, and this particular CSF sample which you have taken up, what is done with that? You can do with that the firstly Indian ink staining. Okay, Indian ink staining is done, and this particular Indian ink staining or Indian ink stain is which type of stain? It is a negative stain. Remember, this particular stain is what? This particular stain is negative stain. Why it is called negative stain? Because background is stain, and against that these organisms they illuminate. Okay, so this is what is termed as Indian ink staining or negative stain. Fine. So this is done here. And how does this looks like Indian ink staining? Just see this particular picture. Okay, just see this particular picture. This is there. This is what is termed as Indian ink preparation of CSF showing Cryptococcus rectitile capsule. So background is dark, and against that these fellows they illuminate, and what is that fellow? They are capsule. Okay, so this is what is Indian ink staining, which you need to remember. Then you remember, other than that, you can culture it. Culture it where? You can culture it on SDA. And what is SDA? Sebrodextrose agar. Okay, and you can culture it on another media also. The name of that is nigger seed agar. Okay, so you can culture it on SDA, and you can culture it on what? You can culture it on nigger seed agar. Okay, so remember this thing also, that you can culture it on SDA and you can culture it on nigger seed agar. Fine. So nigger seed agar, it produces black, or in fact blackish brown colonies. Okay, blackish brownish colonies on nigger seed agar. Okay, and in this it is mucoid and smooth. This type of colonies, they are seen smooth and mucoid on the SDA, and in the nigger seed agar it is blackish brownish colonies which are seen in the nigger seed agar. Then you have a test that is known as latex card agglutination test. Okay, then this test is there, that is name as latex card agglutination test for cryptococcal antigen. So this testing can be done, latex card agglutination test. And remember, you can go for PCR here. Okay, and PCR is what? PCR for cryptococcus neoformans. So that can also be done. That is a PCR for this. That is PCR for cryptococcus neoformans. Okay, and what is the drug of choice if somebody asks for the cryptococcal meningitis? Okay, what is the drug of choice for cryptococcal meningitis? The answer to this question is amphotericin B. That is what is the drug of choice for the cryptococcal meningitis, amphotericin B. And along with that, you can use flucytosine also. Okay, so remember this, amphotericin B with flucytosine is used for cryptococcal meningitis. So remember this one also. Fine. Now talking about zygomycetes family. Okay, now talking about zygomycetes family, and this particular zygomycetes family, what you need to remember in this, that what comes in this, mainly three fellows name you should know. One is rhizopus, one is mucor, and one is Absidia. These three fellows are there and they cause infection in terminally ill fellows. Okay, terminally ill patients are affected more by the zygomycetes family. Now there is one of the infections here which is asked also in your vivas and all, rhinocerebral. Okay, the name is rhinocerebral zygomycosis. This particular name, rhinocerebral zygomycosis, is there, and this rhinocerebral zygomycosis is mostly caused by different rhizopus species. Okay, different rhizopus species are involved up in causing this fulminant infection termed as rhinocerebral zygomycosis. Okay, so this is a fulminant infection, rhinocerebral zygomycosis, and that is being caused by various rhizopus species, that you need to remember. Then what you need to remember here, that how to diagnose up that this is being caused by a zygomycetes or not. So for that, what you do tissue biopsy here, and when you do the tissue biopsy and you stain it with H&E stain. Now what is H&E? Hematoxylin and eosin stain. What you find in this, you find this type of arrangement. And what is this type of arrangement? That is aseptate hyphae obtuse angled. Okay, aseptate hyphae obtuse angled is a typical feature of zygomycetes. Aseptate hyphae obtuse angled branching, that is a typical feature of this particular zygomycetes family. Then you remember, if you just want to find out that is it rhizopus and all that stuff, because this will be seen in all the zygomycetes members. So how to find that thing? You can put this tissue biopsy material, remaining one, into the SDA. And what is SDA? Sebrodextrose agar. And after 3 or 4 days, the culture growth will come. And this particular culture growth which is there, then you do the tease mounting of this, you could teasing of this particular growth, and you prepare up what? You prepare up a LPCB mount of it. Okay, what you do? You take in the culture growth, you put it into this particular stain termed as LPCB. And what is LPCB? LPCB stands for what? Lactophenol cotton blue. This particular one stands for what? Lactophenol cotton blue mount. This you need to remember, LPCB mount. And what happens when it is LPCB mounted? Then you got to see the real structure. And what is that real structure? You will see a sporangiophore. You will see a sporangia. Okay. The sporangia will be seen up. The spores will be seen up inside. And this is termed as sporangiophore. This you observe up on this particular LPCB mount. And down you can see up this type of thing. And what is this type of thing? These are root-like structures whom you call what? Rhizoids. Okay. The sporangia is there. Sporangiophore is there. And which is this sporangia? What is there? Spores are there. And these rhizoids are there in this particular one. And what is rhizoids? Rhizoids are root-like structures. What are the rhizoids? They are root-like structures. So remember this also. Okay, and how to remember that which is rhizopus, which is mucor, which is absidia? Remember like this: if this sporangia is just opposite to the rhizoids, this particular one is rhizopus. Okay, this particular one is rhizopus if this sporangia is just opposite to these roots. And if this is like this, that there is there and this is there, and this particular rhizoids are not exactly in the center, they are at the sides. Okay, and this particular arrangement is termed as what? This particular arrangement is termed as internodal arrangement. This particular arrangement is termed as what? Internodal arrangement. And these are the spores and same thing. So this internodal arrangement is a feature of which fellow? Absidia. This internodal arrangement is a feature of what? Absidia. So remember, in the absidia, these rhizoids, they are at the center. They are not at the center, sorry. They are at the sides. And this particular one, they are exactly opposite. So rhizoids. That is the rhizopus. And this particular one, down one, is absidia. Internodal arrangement. Not exactly opposite, at the sides. And if no rhizoids are there, then it is mucor. If no rhizoids are present, then it is mucor. Okay. And remember something about mucor, that is mucormycosis. Okay, mucormycosis. Mucormycosis is very common in diabetes. Okay, diabetes mellitus fellows, this is very common to have mucormycosis. This you need to remember. Another one is, you need to remember those fellows who are getting up frequent blood transfusions. Those fellows who are getting up frequent blood transfusion because of any reason, they also get mucormycosis. And you have those fellows who are undergoing chronic dialysis. Okay, who are undergoing chronic dialysis, they also are more prone to get what? Mucor infection. So remember this thing also. And for identification of this mucor, the same thing. You have to take the tissue biopsy and you have to culture it up, and then you have to do LPCB mount, and then you have to see that this is mucor or something else. Okay, so remember this fellow relates up with all these conditions: diabetes mellitus, frequent blood transfusions, or chronic dialysis. Okay, so this much you need to remember regarding zygomycetes fellow. Now coming to the aspergillus. Okay, now coming to the aspergillus, and what is there in the aspergillus? Aspergillus, various species are there. Which species? One is Aspergillus fumigatus. Okay, one is Aspergillus niger. One is Aspergillus clevatus. Okay, and one is Aspergillus flavus. Okay, so one is fumigatus, one is niger, one is clevatus, and one is flavus. Fumigatus. This Aspergillus fumigatus leads to what? It leads to ABPA. And what is ABPA? Allergic bronchopulmonary aspergillosis. Okay, this leads to ABPA. And what is that? Allergic bronchopulmonary aspergillosis is caused by fumigatus, and this particular fumigatus also related with aspergilloma. Okay, and what is aspergilloma? That is the fungal balls. Okay, aspergilloma is what? That is the fungal balls, and this one associates with this stuff also, that is termed as oculomycosis and automycosis. Okay, oculomycosis and automycosis is there in the fumigatus, aspergilloma is there, and ABPA there, mainly caused by Aspergillus fumigatus. And this particular one, Aspergillus niger, this one I'm writing down. And Aspergillus niger, you need to remember, this one relates up with automycosis only. And which type of crust is coming in this automycosis? The blackish crust. Which type of crust is seen here? That is the blackish crust that is seen in the Aspergillus niger automycosis. Okay, then this fellow is there, that is the clevatus. Aspergillus clevatus is there. This one leads to what? This one leads to an occupational hazard known as Malster's lung. Okay, this leads to an occupational hazard termed as Malster's lung, and this Malster's lung is common among whom? Those fellows who work in barley and malt factories. Okay, so those particular fellows who works in barley and malt factories, they are more prone to get what? Malster's lung. So remember, this is an occupational disease concerned in barley and malt factory ones. And then you have this one, that is Aspergillus flavus. And Aspergillus flavus, you remember, it leads to the secretion of this particular toxin termed as aflatoxin. Okay, this leads to the release of this particular toxin termed as aflatoxin, and this one relates with what? This one relates with HCC. And what is HCC? Hepatocellular carcinoma. What is this? That is hepatocellular carcinoma. Another question, that which Aspergillus relates with carcinoma? The answer is flavus. Okay, so remember all of these Aspergillus species, important one which we have discussed up. And how to identify them? Suppose you have gone for the tissue biopsy here, and this particular tissue biopsy you have stained with H and E stain. Okay, you have stained it with H and E stain, this you remember. And what you're getting in this one, you will getting in this one is this particular type of arrangement. Okay, and what is this particular type of arrangement? This particular type of arrangement is septate hyphae, septate hyphae are there, and this particular type of branching is termed as dichotomous branching. And this dichotomous branching, the angle is mostly acute. This is acute angled, and in that also mostly it is 45-degree angle. Okay, so if you are seeing up this particular tagline in your question, that the septate hyphae, dichotomous branching, acute angled stuff, that is 45-degree mostly, then this particular one 45-degree mostly, septate hyphae, dichotomous branching, acute angled, 45-degree mostly, then they are talking about what? Then they are talking about Aspergillus. Okay, they are talking about Aspergillus, and this is a frequently asked question. Okay, 10 to 15 times asked question is this, that the septate hyphae, dichotomous branching is a feature of. Answer is Aspergillus. So remember this particular one, this is important regarding the Aspergillus, which you need to remember. Then you remember regarding this particular thing that is known as ergo ergotoxicosis. Okay, and ergotoxicosis, as the name suggests, is ergot poisoning. Okay, and how does this ergot poisoning or ergotoxicosis happen? When the edibles of yours, they get contaminated with the claviceps purpurea seeds. Okay, these edibles, they get contaminated with claviceps purpurea seeds. This particular one will leads to ergotoxicosis. So remember this particular stuff. When the edibles are there with you and they are being contaminated with what? Claviceps purpurea seeds, this is what is termed as ergotoxicosis. Is it fine? Then this particular purpurea seeds, if they are eaten up, this particular edibles, contaminated edibles, they are eaten up. Okay, when these contaminated edibles, they are eaten up, they leads to two things. One is scent vetus dance, or scent vetus dance, not exactly or, and scent Anthony's fire. Okay, so two things are there. One is scent vetus dance and one is scent Anthony's fire. Okay, so one is scent vetus dance and one is scent Anthony's fire. What is the meaning of this? So this scent Anthony's fire is what? After having this, the gastric irritation happens. So after having this, what happens? The gastric irritation happens, and this is immense gastric irritation. It looks like that fire is there in the belly. So that is termed as scent Anthony's fire. And because of this gastric irritation, the person becomes restless, and that particular thing is termed as scent vetus dance. Okay, because of that particular gastric irritation, that particular become restless. Okay, and that restlessness is that scent vetus dance. So remember, this is also being asked in AIMS exam, that what is scent vetus dance? Where do you see scent vetus dance? The answer is, it is seen in ergotoxicosis, that is ergot poisoning. So remember this particular fellow's name, that ergot poisoning associates with claviceps purpurea seeds. So remember this. Then you have certain, this much you need to remember in the candida. Now coming to the pneumocystis carni or xerovasi. Pneumocystis carni and xerovasi, this particular fungus which we have talked about, is a controversial fungus. Some says it's a protozoa and some says it's a fungus. And what are their favorable points why they call it protozoa and fungus? Protozoa, they say because it exists in cyst and trophozoite form. It exists in cyst and trophozoite form. And why were they calling it a fungus? Because the chromosomal studies of it favor it to be a fungus. Okay, but the problem is it is not cultured on SDA, so that's a problem. Otherwise it would have been a fungus, but still it is controversial, and it exists in cyst and trophozoite form, which is a feature of protozoa, and the fungal ones are chromosomal studies favor it to be a fungus. Now this particular one leading to a particular type of pneumonia, that is termed as pneumocystis carni pneumonia, and it tends to happen at a CD4 count of how much? Less than 200 in HIV positive. This tends to happen at the CD4 count of how much? Less than 200 in the HIV positive individuals, obviously. Okay, so that is characteristic of it. And the question of AIMS was that what is the drug of choice for this condition? So drug of choice for this condition is cotrimoxazole, that is being used, which is a combination of trimethoprim and sulfamethoxazole. Okay, the injections are also available and the tablets are available in the double strength for this cotrimoxazole, and it's a wonder drug for the pneumocystis carni or pneumocystis xerovasi pneumonia. Okay, another important aspect is the lab diagnosis. In the lab diagnosis, you go for BAL or you go for gastric washings. Two things you go for. One is BAL and one is gastric washings. And the bile is what? That is the broncho-alveolar lavage fluid, that is termed as bile. And gastric washings happens to be taken in the children because they tend to swallow their sputum. Okay, so for them you take the gastric washings, and in adults you prefer to take the bile. And obviously the bile is not taken in a OPD, it is a OT procedure, and you have to do the bronchoscopy for the bile, and gastric washings is there for the children. Okay, so bile and the gastric washings, these two things, these two materials, you stain up with a particular stain which we have talked in the initial ones, that is GMS. And GMS is what? That is gomori methamin silver. Gomori methamin silver, that is GMS staining, that is being done. And in the GMS staining, you need to remember that in this, the trophozoites, they take the color, which color? Green, because GMS stains green naturally. Okay, so this was the AIMS question. It stains which color? It stains green color. Whereas if we talk about the cyst form, this turns out to be black. And this happens to be why? Because of the glycogen content of it. It turns out to be black. So cysts, they take the color black. Trophozoite, they take the color green. And I suppose you know what is trophozoite. The active feeding stage of any protozoa is termed as trophozoite. So trophozoite stains green and the cyst stains black on the GMS staining of these particular two specimens. Okay, so this question can also come, which naturally stains which color? Green. So that also you need to remember. The problem is it is non-cultured on SDA, and that's why the controversy remains, whether it is a fungus or a protozoa. So non-cultured on SDA, that's the important point here, that this is not being cultured. And another one which is not being cultured is, that is the Rhinospodium seaberry. That is also not cultured on the SDA. Okay, so these points you need to remember regarding the Pneumocystis carni. And in the last, I would like to tell you something about the occupational diseases and something about some of the toxins. Okay, so first of all, we'll talk about the occupational diseases. The first occupational disease which we are talking about is farmer's lung. Farmer's lung. Farmer's lung happens to be because of hay, that is stored hay, and the etiological agents are this particular fungus, that is Phania rectivirgula, okay, or Thermoactinomyces vulgaris. They are the etiological agent of farmer's lung. It is a hypersensitivity pneumonitis and it is a type 3 hypersensitivity. Remember that. Okay, and this time they have asked one more question, that these two options were not there. What was there? Micro or polyspora pheni. This is also one of the causative agents of farmer's lung. So micro polyspora pheni along with this Phania rectivirgula and Thermoactinomyces vulgaris. These are the ones which does what? Farmer's lung. First. Second one is Beggar's that you know associated with sugarcane dust. Okay, it associates with sugarcane dust, and the causative organism is Thermoactinomyces shakkar. Okay, so remember shakkar, sugarcane, beggar's sauces. Okay, third one, maple bark stripper's lung. Okay, so which fellows which strips the maple bark, they get this disease. So obviously the source is maple tree bark, and the organism is Cryptostroma corticale. CC, Cryptostroma corticale happens to be with maple bark stripper's lung. Fourth is cheese washer's lung. Okay, cheese washer's lung, it happens to those who works in cheese factories, and the causative organism of this one is Penicillium caseocolum. Penicillium caseocolum, and this can come as a question. Okay, so remember the first one is very important and second one is very important, and this one, cheese washer's lung, is also very important. Now coming to the fifth one, that is termed as maltster's lung. Maltster's lung happens to be associated with barley and malt, those who works there in barley and malt factories. And the causative organism for this is Aspergillus clavatus. Okay, the causative organism for this is Aspergillus clavatus. The sixth one is Psychiosis, and there is a red wood sawdust. Okay, red wood sawdust, that is the causative stuff here, Psychiosis. And the organism is Oreobasidium pullulans. Oreobasidium pullulans, that is the main one, Oreobasidium pullulans. Then the seventh one, that is the Suberosus. Suberosus associates with cork. That cork is a source, and the organism is Penicillium frequentans. Okay, organism is Penicillium frequentans. Suberosus frequentans. Psychiosis, in a sequence you pull, that is Oreobasidium pullulans. Okay, Suberosus associates with cork, and the organism is Penicillium frequentans. Then the eighth one, the wood pulp worker's lung. That happens to be those who works with wood pulp, and this species, Altinaria or Altinaria, this particular species associates with wood pulp worker's lung. Ninth one is humidifier lung, and what associates with humidifier, and the organism is T. vulgaris and T. candidus, that is Thermoactinomyces vulgaris and Thermoactinomyces candidus. They associate with humidifier lung. Okay, again if we go once for them, farmer's lung associates with Thermoactinomyces vulgaris along with micro and Polyspora fenni. Beggar sausage sugarcane dust associates with Chakri. Maple bark streeper's lung associates with Cryptostroma corticale. Cheese washer's lung, Penicillium casucolum. Maltster's lung, Aspergillus clavatus. Psychiosis, in a sequence associated with Oreobasidium pullulans. Okay, in the sequence you pull. Suberosis associates with cork, and this is associated with frequency, that is Penicillium frequentans. Wood pulp worker's lung, wood pulp Altinaria species. Humidifier lung associates with humidifier, and the organisms are vulgaris and candidus, that is Thermoactinomyces vulgaris and the candidus. Okay, then in the last, something about the mycotoxins, just the names and all. Okay, so mycotoxins are there like aflatoxin, and you know which organism secretes it, that is mainly the Aspergillus flavus. Okay, this particular species of Aspergillus secretes of aflatoxins. Fine, and this aflatoxin leads to the HCC, that is hepatocellular carcinoma. Okay, so it associates with hepatocellular carcinoma because of this aflatoxins and all. Citrulline, they don't produce anything in the humans and all, but they can cause infections in the animals and all. Citrulline is also a mycotoxin. Ergot alkaloids. Regarding this, you remember that this ergot poisoning associates with Claviceps purpurea. Okay, this particular one associates with Claviceps purpurea seeds, which gets into what? Into the edibles. Okay, and this leads to ergotoxicosis or ergot poisoning. Fine. So like this, ergotoxicosis or ergot poisoning happens because of the contamination with ergot alkaloids. And remember here two names, that is Saint Anthony's fire or Saint Vitus dance. I used to tell them like this only, but it was asked in aims that Saint Anthony's fire is seen in ergotoxicosis. And what is the meaning of this Saint Anthony's fire? Because of the immense gastric irritation, this particular thing looks like a fire in the belly, so that is termed as Saint Anthony's fire. Or Saint Vitus dance, because of the gastric irritation, that fellow could not able to sit at one place, so that's why that is termed as what? Saint Vitus dance. Then you have fuminosin. These are also secreted by this fusarium and all. Ochratoxin, just the name you need to remember. Okay, nobody will ask you the details except these two which I have told you, aflatoxin and ergot alkaloids. So fuminosin, ochratoxin, petulin, trichothysin and zearalenone. These are the various ones which are the various toxins of the myco. And they are used where? They are used in the bioterrorism also. And two examples of that bioterrorism: the Iraq had used aflatoxin as a warfare agent, and the Soviet Union, they have used this trichothisins, which is the second last one here, and they have caused a type of rain because of them, that is termed as yellow rain. Okay, so trichothisins were used and aflatoxin were used as a warfare agents, as a bioterrorist weapon. Okay, so this also you need to remember. Again, one name is aflatoxin, citrullin, ergot alkaloids. These two are important. They can be the questions. Okay, citrullin, fumicin, ochratoxin, patulin, trichothisin, ziraluron. Just the names you need to remember of them. Okay, so with this we end up with mycology, and after this what you have to do, you have to see that particular image videos. Okay, and then you can relate up all the things very well by that particular image videos. Okay, so we have used number of PPTs to show up the pictures and all in this particular mycology section. Okay, and this time it's mostly the pictures which I have shown up in the PPTs also, to give a visual imprint, and other pictures are there in that mycology picture section. This also you need to see. Okay, and that will solve up most of your questions of the mycology. Thank you so much.